Will mice eat my floor insulation? This is one of the most commonly asked questions I receive, so in this video I'm going to be answering it as best I can. When I built the floor of my garden room, the PIR insulation simply sat on top of some battens which were attached to the joists, and the underside of the insulation was left open, which has prompted a lot of questions about the risk of rodents, insects, marauding squirrels, etc. I've refrained from making this video until now so that I can show you, given that some time has passed, how the insulation is getting on. So to jump to the conclusion of the video, it's been totally fine and looks exactly the same as it did the day I put it in. I've also left a piece of this insulation outside in the garden, and I can confirm that no rodent or insect has ever taken an interest in it. A wool insulation, however, would probably make great nest material for a mouse, plus it can fall out easily, so I wouldn't have the same confidence had I used rock wool. So personally I'm not worried, but that's not to say that you shouldn't be cautious, so let's brainstorm some options for what you can do if you are concerned, and at the end I'll tell you what pest I have had trouble with and where. The first option is to attach a breathable membrane to the underside of the joist, which would certainly keep insects out, though this might not stop a determined mouse. It would need to be face down to allow the floor to breathe, and a damp-proof membrane or vapor barrier should not be used, as that would defeat the purpose of having the space under the joists for ventilation. A second option is to put wire mesh under the joists. To keep mice out, the holes would need to be pretty small, and the wire would need to be reasonably thick to be effective. The chicken wire I used on my old coop seemed to do a good job of keeping rodents out. The other advantage of doing this is that you don't need to worry about the insulation falling out, so there's no need for battens. The third option, and most rodent-proof, would be to attach OSB under the joists. You'd obviously need to do this for each section separately before putting the floor together. As well as keeping the insulation in position, the OSB will keep the floor section square, so no need for bracing as I did in part 5. The downside is that this is a costly solution. The other variation of this question is, how do you stop anything taking up residence underneath the floor at all? For aesthetics, you'll want to close the gap under the building anyway, so either with decking or running the cladding to ground level. If you have hard standing, such as paving, that meets the cladding or decking, that should stop foxes, badgers, raccoons if you're from further afield, but probably won't prevent smaller animals like mice, squirrels or weasels. So in that case, what you could do is build a perimeter wall all around the building with blocks. If you have grass around your garden room, then you'd need the wall to start below ground to stop a fox from digging underneath. This is essentially how a house with a timber floor is built, and similarly, you'd need air bricks in two opposite sides to allow airflow. I say this is a pretty good way of building your foundations anyway, as if you do it properly, the perimeter wall can support the weight of the roof and walls. If you think about it, the block piers or whatever supports you're using in the middle only really support the floor. The perimeter block piers are doing most of the work. On the other hand, doing this is a lot more work and a bit more cost too. Another idea would be to attach wire mesh to the outside of the floor, dropping down into the ground. If it's foxes you're concerned about, your best bet is to have the mesh go down about a foot and then splay outwards away from the garden room. Either of these last two methods could be used in conjunction with any of the first three. I can say that there are definitely foxes living in the alleyway behind my garden room, but they've never taken up residence under it, despite at least one side being open. But they are known to dig their dens under sheds. My wildcard solution for mice is to get a cat, or at least if you have one, you probably don't need to worry. I guess it depends on the cat, but ours is highly effective, which I generally approve of in the vicinity of the house. Interestingly, where we've now moved to, there's an invasive species of dormouse called a glisglis, which can chew through wires and plasterboard, so I'm glad to have him around. Anyway, I hope my experience is reassuring, and if not, you have some options, my pick being the perimeter wall. The one caveat to my own build is that my floor is a bit higher off the ground than most garden rooms, so it's a possibility that that makes a difference. So what pests do I think you should be wary of? Wasps in the soffit, and we'll tackle that in a couple of videos' time.